Good evening. It's good to have everyone with us this evening. If you'll join us, we're going to sing a couple of praise and worship songs. We're going to start out with Mansion Over the Hilltop.
I'm satisfied with just a cottage below, a little silver and a little gold. But in that city where the ransom will shine, I want a gold one, that silver light. I've got a mansion just over the hilltop in that bright land where we'll never grow. And someday yonder we will never more wander, but walk the streets that are pure as gold. Though often tempted, tormented and tested, and like the prophets, my pillow of stone. And though I find here no permanent dwelling, I know He'll give me a mansion my own. I've got a mansion just over the hilltop in that bright land where we'll never grow old. And someday yonder we will never more wander, but walk those streets that are pure as gold. Don't think me poor or deserted or lonely. I'm not discouraged. I'm heaven bound. I'm just a pilgrim in search of the city. I want a mansion, a robe and a crown. I've got a mansion just over the hilltop in that bright land where we'll never grow old. And someday yonder we will never more wander, but walk the streets that are pure as gold.
Okay, and our next song is going to be Wonderful Grace of Jesus. And if you guys know the bass part of this, feel free to really sing out.
Wonderful grace of Jesus, greater than all my sin. How shall my tongue describe it? Where shall its praise begin? Taking away my burden, setting my spirit free. For the wonderful grace of Jesus reaches me. Wonderful the matchless grace of Jesus, deeper far than all of rolling sea. Wonderful grace, all sufficient for me, for even me. Broader than the scope of my transgressions, greater far than all my sin and shame. Oh, magnify the precious name of Jesus, bless His name. Wonderful grace of Jesus, matchless grace of Jesus, deeper far than mighty rolling sea. Wonderful grace, oh sufficient for me, for even me, broader than the scope of my transgressions, greater far than all my sin and shame. Oh, magnify the precious name of Jesus, bless His name. Wonderful grace of Jesus, reaching the most defined by its transforming power, making a God's dear child, purchase of peace and heaven for all eternity, and the wonderful grace of Jesus reaches me. Wonderful the matchless grace of Jesus, deeper than the mighty rolling sea. Wonderful grace, oh sufficient for me, for even me, broader than the scope of my transgressions, greater far than all my sin and shame. Oh, magnify the precious name of Jesus, bless His name.
Well, how's everyone this evening or afternoon or whatever it is? Couple prayer requests before we get started tonight. First one, Steve Osage is having some health issues. He's got a tumor that cannot be removed. He knows that his days are numbered unless God intervenes, but God has intervened on his behalf in the past, and he's on his way to North Dakota right now to preach a revival up there, and Kelly Kane is driving him. But with Steve's problems, where we normally would fill up with gas and not stop until we needed gas, he's probably stopping about once an hour, so I'm sure this is a longer trip than normal. But Steve will not be making any more trips for a while unless Kelly or I are there to be his chauffeurs. So be in prayer for Steve. He's been a great friend of us in the ministry, a great friend for us personally, and been very impactful to us. Then if you're from Colcord area, Susie Harrington's husband, Rick Harrington, died this morning. And I don't know any details. I just got a prayer request a little while ago asking us to be praying for the family. So, anything else tonight before I get started? We have plenty of ice cream back there. I made vanilla ice cream, and we have chocolate cookies and cream, which I've never had chocolate cookies and cream. Yes, be in prayer for John and them with their baby. Good. Yeah, if you got back to school coming up this week, and also as you're looking and shopping for school supplies, Operation Christmas Child, we get done with Operation Christmas Child, we'll work on South Dakota. So from now until Christmas, we'll be doing Christmas gifts. We will be busy. If you guys weren't around here last year at Christmas time, this turns into Santa's workshop in a lot of ways the last November, December. Last year at one time, we had over 900 shoe boxes setting up here. And that's a lot of shoe boxes for Christmas gifts. We've been going through the 12 tribes of Israel or of Judah, of Jacob. Jacob had 12 sons. We've gone through a little bit. Let me repeat a little bit. Leah's sons were Reuben, Jacob's firstborn, Simeon, Levi, Judah, Issachar, and Zebulun. The sons of Rachel are Joseph. Now, he's probably the most famous of the sons, and I'll spend a few minutes. Most of you know this story. Probably one of the most important characters we read anywhere in the Bible, because Joseph grew up, was his dad's favorite son. We've all heard the stories, heard the songs, seen the movies about the coat of many colors. His brothers were very jealous because his dad was very obvious about his preference. The long story behind that, Joseph's mother had been the wife that he had wanted all along. He got another wife and different things, and she couldn't have children at first. So it became a lot of jealousy, a lot of problems within the family. And it describes how the Israelites, or Jacob's descendants, became a nation in Egypt. And why is that important? Because of Moses. If you don't have Joseph, you don't have all the Israelites or the Hebrew children in Egypt, then you don't have Moses bringing them back home. Joseph was the 11th son of Jacob, and it was finally by Rachel. He was favored by Jacob, and he had an ability to interpret dreams. He had 2 dreams of his own, which he made a mistake of sharing those with his brothers. He might not have had any problem if it had just kept them to himself. Essentially, in both dreams, it showed the 12 of them, because there was 12 sons, but 11 of them bowing down to one. In other words, in the way he took it and the way the brothers took it, you guys are all going to bow down to me. Now, can you imagine being siblings and the younger one saying, eventually you're going to bow down to me? I think there'd be a lot of brothers showing you how to take a bow right now, I'm afraid. You would get roughed up a little bit in today's world. The name Joseph is a Hebrew name which comes from Yosef, which means he will add. So he is fulfilling, or part of the fulfillment of Abraham's promise from God that he would have many kids. He would fill the earth with his children. And this was an important part of that. All the brothers pretty much despised Joseph because of dad, and then adding these dreams to it did not help it any. So as we've read, most of us know the story. All the older brothers are out in the field. Joseph goes to find them. Their jealousy, they debate about killing him. Instead, they throw him in a pit until a group comes by and they decide to sell him. And that's how he ends up going to Egypt. In Egypt, God continues to protect him and use him. Even though he gets thrown in jail for a while, he still is protected, and his abilities still shine while he's in prison. He's given some authority because he has knowledge and ability to lead and make decisions and organize. He gets out of prison. The king has a dream himself. The Pharaoh has a dream. And the Pharaoh needs someone to interpret, and no one can interpret, so he does. He goes and tells them, because it talks about 6 cows that are just healthy, fat as can be. Then there's a dream of some that are skinny and dying. I laugh every time I think of that. Barbara and I were in Puerto Rico several years ago now. And if you've ever been to Puerto Rico, there's a mountain chain that runs from one end to the other. On the north side of it, there's rain, everything is lush, green, and cows there look just like they do here. On the south side of the island, it never gets any rain. It's dry. And first we thought there were goats when we saw the cattle on that side of the island, because they were skinny, there was not much to eat. Well, Pharaoh's dream was very much the same way. The cattle, some were fat, and the next ones were skinny. And what Joseph understood was, that means we've got years of good times coming. We have food, God will take care of us. Then there's some harsh years coming after that. Luckily, Pharaoh let him be in charge of collecting food. And what did they do? They built silos, storage ways to store grain during the good years. What do we say around here about put hay in the barn? Not been much hay this year to do that without the rain, but maybe now we'll get some more. But Joseph put hay in the barn. So when the lean years came, there was food there for them to eat. Well, when those lean years came, Joseph's family that had sold him off were still living in Israel. Well, they got hungry. Now, they didn't want to go to Egypt. They didn't want to have to go somewhere else, ask for help or food. But when you're hungry, you'll do just about anything, won't you? So they sent part of the family down to Egypt, to get food. When they got down there, they were standing in front of Joseph and didn't even recognize him. Now, I'm sure he was dressed like an Egyptian. They hadn't seen him in years. Probably was much healthier than they were. But he recognized them. And goes on that after some tests and such, he has them finally, they get food. But one of the things is the younger brother, we'll talk about in just a minute, Benjamin, wasn't there. And after questioning them, he realized that Benjamin wasn't there, and he said, I'm going to keep one of the brothers here until you bring everyone down here. He sent some food home with him, and if you remember, he put the food back, or the money for the food back in there with him. They went back up, and Dad said, I'm not letting Benjamin go. It was the only way to go, so Benjamin came back down. And eventually, father, all the sons moved down there because they were told that Joseph was their brother and that he forgave them, and life went on. Then years later, about 400 years later, is when we read of Moses leading the Israelites back out of there. But without Joseph and God's ability, without God being able to do something good and what man thought for evil, his brothers were ready to kill him, sell him, get rid of him. But instead, he was moving them down there to protect them till it was time for Moses to lead them back home. Benjamin was the 12th born and youngest son of Jacob's family. Again, he was born to Rachel. He was Joseph's only full brother. Rachel died during childbirth, but as she was dying, she named her son Ben-Oni, which means son of my trouble. Jacob renamed him to Benjamin, which means son of my right hand. Benjamin was not part of the conspiracy to sell Joseph. When the brothers traveled to Egypt to seek food for the famine, Jacob's love for his youngest brother compelled them to keep Benjamin home because he was afraid what harm may come to him. The others returned home with the grain they had purchased. Jacob prepared to die, as he prepared to die, he blessed Benjamin and said, Benjamin is a ravenous wolf. In the morning he devours the prey. In the evening he divides the plunder. The tribe of Benjamin became famous for their skill in battle and in warlike nature. The last two sons were from the wife that he originally thought he was working for to get. He finally got two sons. He blessed them. But if you remember, we've talked about it a couple weeks ago, as he was dying, he shared a blessing or a prophecy, really, on all the kids. Because not all, most people call it a prophecy, but not all, or a blessing, but not all of it was blessing. Some of them were being told because of their evil decisions, some of the things they had done, they would never succeed the way they could have. But we read Benjamin and we read about Joseph. It goes on, it says, and the sons of Bilhah, Rachel's handmaid, are Dan. Dan was the fifth son of the 12 sons born to the Jewish patriarch Jacob. His mother was Bilhah, Rachel's maidservant. Dan's younger brother was Naphtali. On his deathbed, Jacob pronounced blessing over all his sons. Dan was promised the role of a judge. Said Dan will judge his people as one of the tribes of Israel. What I'm not real clear on from what I read was whether Dan himself was ever a judge or whether just his kids or his ancestry became the judges of Israel. Naphtali was Jacob's sixth born, second two sons by Rachel's handmaid Bilhah. Rachel was so delighted at the birth of another son that she called the child Naphtali, which means my wrestling. She chose this because she had been wrestling or struggling with her older sister Leah to provide Jacob with heirs. And Rachel said, I have had a great struggle with my sister and I have won. So she named him Naphtali. Jacob's deathbed prophecy or blessing on him is that he is a doe set free that bears beautiful fawns or gives beautiful words. Scholars suggest many interpretations for Jacob's blessing. Some say it's implied that it was gentleness of character. Others think maybe it applied to agility in battle. And that goes on. And the sons of Zilpah, Leah's handmaid, Gad. Gad's mother was Zilpah. Zilpah was also the mother of Asher. When Gad was born, Leah chose his name, which means good fortune in Hebrew. Leah's servant had a son. Then Leah said, what good fortune? Now, you've got to remember at that time, if her handmaid or servant had a son, everyone would recognize it as her own son. So it wasn't like this was a stepson or anything. It was treated as if this was her own son. So to her, it became a good fortune. Jacob praised Gad and predicted the tribe would contain brave troops that would drive off raiders and victoriously pursue Israel's enemies. Asher was the 8th son of Jacob. His name was blessed or happy. According to the laws of the time, again, children were born of the servants, so he became a son of, became of the slave owner, Leah's servant, or Leah. The blessing for Asher was, Asher's food will be rich. He will provide delicacies fit for a king. What Jacob was saying is that they were in for good times. They were going to be blessed with food. They were going to have what they needed. He was promising them a good time, and apparently the tribe went on and said that, or lived that way. Again, I've been trying to go through the 12 tribes. I never know each Sunday whether I should give a long lesson on it or a short lesson on the tribes. Why are they important? Because that's still, as we see Jesus when he goes back into the land, when Moses goes back into the land, those tribes still were controlling certain areas, and descendants of that families still know their area, know their responsibility, and it impacts them to this day. Again, if you talk to an Orthodox Jew today, they can tell you what tribe they came down from. They can tell you who their descendants are. I've shared in here that my father's side of the family is Cherokee Indian. I can barely go back 3 generations and find anything on him. Johnette has helped me, and we've got a couple leads on some things there, but it's not much to find on my father's side of the family. Yet Israel people, the Jewish people, can go all the ways back for thousands of years because it's been important to them. Why was it not important to the Cherokee? A lot of them, the Trail of Tears, they did not want to register. They didn't trust white people, so they did not want to sign any rolls. They did not want any records of who they were. We're just the opposite for the Jewish people. They wanted their heritage. They wanted to remember that from Abraham to Judah to Dan or Joseph or whoever their descendants were, who they had came from. We in America, most of us now, with computers, like on my mother's side of the family, she was Irish. They've traced it back to Ireland. We can tell you for 300 years where we've came from on that side of the family. It was important. It was easy to track because of modern technology. But the Jewish people, that's part of growing up. You memorize what tribe you're from, who your ancestors were. If you had any die in the Holocaust or anything like that, they know that. I sometimes think we as Christians would be good if we would stop and remember a lot of that. A lot of times I think one of the things we learned when we were in Israel a few months ago is how we Americanize the Bible. We look at things like America is a 200-year-old country, and that's the world we know. That's the Bible we know. We were looking at houses over there in Israel, and the guy said, yeah, that one's a new one. It's about 200 years old. That house was new, and it's the age of our country. Too often we try to fit the Bible into our picture, into our timelines. I think I told most of you we were talking. He has a sister in Dallas, our guide did, and he was trying to explain to him where we live, and I said, we're about 5 hours from Dallas. And he laughed and said, you can drive from one end of Israel to the other in 5 hours. Now to us, I don't think 5 hours is very far away to drive down to Dallas. Think nothing of it. But in his world, that was a big deal. So as we look through the tribes, as we talk about the 12 different tribes, some of them we know a lot about. Some of them we don't, but they still are important to us as Christians, our history, our background. And as you study prophecy, as you study different things at end times, it's important to know that these tribes exist, some of where they came from, because it does impact. And we read in Revelation that the 12 tribes will have representatives who are part of the judges, part of the guidance at the end times for us. There will be 12 from the apostles and 12 from the tribes of Judah. Okay, remind everyone next Saturday, we got food pantry at noon. Normally, Barbara, Rhonda, Raylyn, and I are a big part of the food pantry, but we will be having a funeral or memorial that day. I don't know how available we will be, so if any of you are available to help with the food pantry next Saturday, it would be appreciated. I probably will be around, but I got a feeling Barbara and Rhonda won't be much help next Saturday. Then we have the memorial at 3, the matinee after that. If you're wanting to go to matinee, please sign up just so we know how many people are going. What did we look up? It was, $17 a head to eat there. But it's all the fried chicken you can eat. And mashed potatoes, and their white bean soup is incredible. Then we've got a men's retreat coming up at the end of the month, going with First Baptist out of Gentry. Again, school starts Thursday here, a week after that in Gentry, so be in prayer for school and teachers. Be in prayer for Brian as he starts his first day as a full-time teacher tomorrow. You going to be able to stay awake during the meetings tomorrow?
I think they're providing coffee.
Good. Let me close this in prayer, then we have ice cream and time for fellowship, okay? Dear Heavenly Father, again, we're so thankful for the chance to be here. I thank you for those that have come out tonight. Be with those that are sick right now, and I lift up Susie right now as she mourns the loss of her husband. Be with Barbara and Rhonda and Scott as they are planning a funeral for Rachel. And we lift up John and Crystal right now with the new baby and pray you'll continue to bless and guide them. Lord, you're blessing our church in so many ways, including new babies being born into it. So guide us, Lord, to do your work, to do your will. Bless this time of fellowship. Help us, Lord, just to be hungry to do your will when we leave here. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.